The Thing, Cold War, by Frank Del Vecchio. We begin in spring of 1983, not too long after the original movie by John Carpenter, which took place in the winter of 1982. The weather has cleared up enough for a rescue party to come along and see what happened to Outpost 31. The first team to show up is an American Special Forces squad, led by Colonel Whitley. Our main character is Captain J.F. Blake. The goal is to take characters from the video game and prequel and make them seem less dumb to the audience, give them more depth. The Americans search the camp a bit and find the tape recorder Mac left behind, some floppy disks with info on it, and a bunch of bodies including the frozen remains of MacReady and Childs. Another group suddenly arrives at the camp. A Russian team also caught Outpost 31's distress signal. Also with the Russian group is Kate Lloyd from the 2011 prequel, who is now extremely paranoid and persistent. They wanted to keep her back at the camp, but she always wants to stay in large groups. Plus, she knows what happened to Outpost 31, since it's the same thing that happened to her camp with the Norwegians. The Russians do think there's something up, and they suppose maybe it's shock or cabin fever, or maybe some sort of disease. As for Kate's story of shape-shifting organisms, they find that to be science fiction nonsense. The Americans think Kate might have had something to do with what happened at Outpost 31, but they're not entirely sure how. They wish to ask her a few questions. Kate is so paranoia-stricken, the first thing she does when meeting anyone is to tell them to open their mouths, since that was the test used in the prequel. Of course, the Americans are confused and don't comply, and realize now's not the time for questions. They plan to get Kate to a ship off the continent once the investigation was done, but Mother Nature put a dent in that plan. They explain that as the old saying goes, March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb, and another storm is brewing. There's not much time and the Russian base is closer, so they allow the Americans to come hole up with them until it blows over, since the storm isn't as severe as the previous one. The Russians also help to get to the bottom of what happened. Both teams try to be civil, but as things get more intense, we'll see some cultural tension as we're still deep in the Cold War. The Russian base is about an hour or two away from the coast. Most of the alien corpses were snowed over. They take the bodies they did find to the Russian base. The bodies are that of MacReady's, Childs, and Knowles, who was killed off screen in the original. Now would be a good time to go over characters. As mentioned before, we have J.F. Blake, Colonel Whitley, and Kate Lloyd, but there's also North, who's a soldier on the American side, strong and confident, and Weldon, the medic.
He's the mouth of the group.
On the Russian team, we have Gennady Botin, who's the leader of the Russian crew and easily angered. There's also his wife, Olga, who's a doctor, and she's quite shy and timid. There's also Koretsky, a helicopter pilot. Some are intimidated by his size. Finally, there's Dr. Milton Pavel, an awkward loner but a brilliant Russian scientist. Back to the story, it turns out the fan theories were true when Childs was infected. His body thaws, and when Olga's back is turned, his chest slightly rises, insinuating breathing. Slowly but surely, a new rampage begins. Meanwhile, Blake, Whitley, and Pavel check out the rest of the evidence they found from Outpost 31. And it's shocking. Whitley and Pavel see the assimilation graph on the floppy disks they collected, and Blake, on the other hand, is in the other room listening to MacReady's tape. It gives him chills. The Thing knows Kate is onto it, so its main goal is to get her alone and take her out. But here's where the conflict lies. As mentioned before, Kate is always trying to surround herself in large groups where the Thing wouldn't reveal itself. Once a good number of the crew members are infected, the Thing plans to corner Kate, then wait out the storm and head to the coast. The Thing exposed itself so much in the prequel, and it paid for it. It learned and did a much more stealthy job at Outpost 31, so now all it can do is keep learning. And instead of increasing on action like the prequel did, this story attempts to increase the intensity, increase the stealth, increase the paranoia, while still having moments of action. The Thing is now very picky with its reveals. It needs a fast way of spreading. When exiting the autopsy room, Olga takes off her face mask. The American medic, who's just fascinated in this stuff, asks how things are going. Olga responds that everything seems fine as she begins to rub her nose. That night, when the Botins are in their quarters, Gennady asks how she's feeling. She says she's much better. They move into bed, and her movements get more flirtatious. Not overly flirtatious, but we see her rubbing Gennady's arm. Blake sees Kate, and at first, she's a bit hostile, but then Blake admits she may be right about everything, to which Kate replies, "I know I am." Things go quiet before Blake looks down and sees that Kate has been journaling. And what her journal says is, "Watch the skies. Everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies." An obvious nod to the final lines of the original 1951 movie, The Thing from Another World. It also harkens back to the scene in the prequels where the two ladies watch the skies on that first night at the Norwegian camp. Meanwhile, strange noises can be heard above, like there's something in the air ducts. The first person to hear it is North. He steps out of his room. The Boteens follow. Both of their quarters are by the autopsy room. The noise seemed to start there and spread further out. It gets to the point where everyone hears it. They all get up and try to track it. North and the Boteens check the autopsy room. They check the drawers where they hold the bodies. Knowles' mangled remains are there. McCready's is there, but Childs is gone. Weldon notices a jacket missing from the rack. Koretsky discovers the keys to the helicopter are missing. Kate spots a shadow rushing down the hall in a coat with its hood up. She chases it down the hall. Coming up from the other hallway is Gennady and the rest. Kate and Gennady hit into each other. She grabs him by the shoulder and points down the hall saying, "Gennady, I saw it. It went down that way." Trying to catch her breath before she intensely pulls him in and asks, "Where did you put the flamethrower?" Blake is right behind her and he vouches for her. "She's telling the truth," he says. They're cut off by an alarm going off. Koretsky noticed it heading towards the helicopter. They all put on their jackets and rush out there. Child's Thing tries to escape to the coast with the helicopter since it's still early in the storm and flying won't be too rough. It slowly stomps up to the helicopter. They all stare at it and comment to themselves before Child's Thing turns around, looking horribly scarred but still human. It opens its mouth and lets out an unearthly roar similar to the one Bennings gave in the original. As they all stare dumbfounded, something falls in the snow right next to the feet of the Child's Thing, before he suddenly bursts into flames. Kate had thrown an incendiary grenade. Although dumbfounded, everyone sees the danger in having a flame next to a helicopter's gas tanks as the copter explodes. They all lie there in the snow until the thing dies.
"Are you crazy?"
Koretsky shouts. "No. Pavel, Weldon, get an extinguisher and put out the flames. Everyone else get inside." She passes by Gennady and stares him in the eye. "And if you can finally show me where you put the flamethrower, that'd be great." Cut to the main hall of the camp. Everyone is sitting around on couches while Kate stands in front of them, flamethrower in hand. "Are you all ready to believe me?" Kate explains what the thing is, and although astounded, Blake, Whitley, and Pavel begin to get it. Pavel speaks up. "It all makes sense now. I thought those computer simulations we found were just the ramblings of a man with severe case of cabin fever, but it's all true. And if that sim was right about spreading..." "What did it say about spreading?" Kate responds. Pavel continues. "That if it reached mainland, this organism can infect the entire Earth's population in over 3 years. We have to keep it contained." Olga chimes in. "That's what I'm getting at," Kate adds. "Koretsky, you think I'm crazy? I just destroyed that creature's one true way out of here." "That's true. If it tried to move out on the snowcat during this storm, it'd be an ice cube fairly quick." Gennady enters the conversation, skeptical.
"So, what? You're just suggesting we sit here, all friendly with this monster in our midst until the storm passes over?"
Kate concludes, "I'm saying we get to the bottom of this and finally finish it off for good." Whitley questions if there's any way to distinguish who's human and who's not. Pavel states that blood seems like the perfect method of testing. Kate answers that there's an even simpler way, the way that she's been showing them this whole time. The thing only gets smarter. They try to do Kate's mouth tests first, since it's an easier way to come to a conclusion than a drawn-out blood test, but it proves ineffective. Much like in the prequel, she separates who has inorganic material in their bodies versus who doesn't. Blake has no fillings in his teeth, but he admits that he has a metal plate in his arm, and he lets her feel for it. She gives Blake the flamethrower so she can continue to hold the flashlight up to their mouths. Kate has fillings. Blake has a plate in his arm. Gennady has no fillings and no plates. Olga has no fillings and no plates. Weldon has fillings. Koretsky has a nose ring and a tattoo on his arm. North has a plate in his leg. And Whitley, a scar on his left cheek. If assimilated, his skin would probably be more clear and brand new. Blake is told to keep the flamethrower on them. Pandemonium starts to break out as Gennady thinks this is bullshit that he and his wife might get killed because they have good dental health. Gennady also chastises Koretsky in his native tongue for going along with, quote, these American pigs. There's some pushing and shoving, and North has a machine gun. As Gennady and North struggle over the gun, Weldon is accidentally shot right in the forehead. Blood drips down from the hole as Weldon grips both sides of his head and shudders for a second before his back rips open. They notice bloody fillings fall out of his mutated mouth. He grows 2 extra bug legs, falls down, and uses his lengthening hands as front legs as his fingers turn into slimy claws. His original legs stretch and bend and break into a style more similar to the bug ones he just sprouted. One eyeball grows a stalk from underneath it like a snail as it slowly slithers outwards. His arms break backwards to fit a more animal-like leg design. North shoots at it. It falters for a second, but that doesn't kill it. Kate screams that shooting it won't do shit. Gennady steps back. North does the same. And although he knows bullets won't do anything, he still instinctively holds up the gun as Weldon Thing angrily stomps up to them. North, in a state of paranoia, fires at it again, hitting it in the head. Koretsky, Olga, and Whitley bailed out of the room entirely. Pavel puts his back against the wall. Kate screams at Blake to burn it as Blake blasts flames onto the creature. North and Gennady step out of the way as the flaming creature screams. Gennady fears the base burning down, so he grabs the extinguisher. Blake stops him for a second, telling him to let it burn. Kate shakes her head disbelievingly. This doesn't make any sense. Weldon had fillings. North theorizes that the thing must have figured out a loophole. Although the thing can't replicate inorganic materials, what's stopping it from taking the victim's tooth fillings and putting them back inside its mouth? From there, the thing could shapeshift a newly formed tooth to fit the fillings. They grab as many flammable materials as they can, anything that they could use to burn. They take Weldon Thing's corpse outside and burn it more before heading back in, their faces red and clothes covered in frost. Pavel states, I guess I was right.
A blood test seems to be the only way.
Much like how the Hateful Eight mirrored the Civil War by dividing Minnie's haberdashery from North and South, this is where the story begins to heavily mirror the Cold War, as it becomes more of a game of secrecy and deception, with a fiery outcome. The thing sabotages the slightest idea of a blood test by destroying all the needles and medical equipment they might need to do one. And since all traces of the blood test used at Outpost 31 are gone, they have to come up with a new test. Pavel figures a urine test could work just as well. They stay close, but some members still need privacy when giving the urine samples. That privacy includes barely keeping the bathroom door shut as they wait outside, flamethrower pointed at the door. Once everyone is given a sample, they're all handcuffed except for Kate and Pavel. Some argue against the idea of being cuffed. Pavel administers the test, admitting that he wasn't tested previously when they did the mouth test, and that if he were an alien, he probably wouldn't mention the idea of a blood test to begin with. He shows that he's clean. Knowing the thing's aversion to fire, they put the sample over an open flame. Next to be tested is Blake, and he's clean too. He's uncuffed and given a blowtorch. After that, just for safety, Kate's urine is tested. It doesn't react either. This is when Gennady begins to speak up.
This is ridiculous. Here's an idea. Kate's always talking about aliens. What if she's one of them?
Pavel defends that so far she's never broken up from the group.
Well, what if she was one all along, under our noses since winter?
Kate counters that if that were the case, they would all be infected by now. Blake adds,
Besides, the test says she's clean.
Gennady shouts,
But how can you be sure?
Pavel argues it's because the urine is pure cellular activity. It can't wear anything, and without a brain, these cells are bound to respond on instinct. It's their biological code to avoid threat. It's got nowhere to hide. It's just a puddle. Whitley is clean and given a thing of gasoline. Koretsky's urine sample reacts, and although he protests, he's unfairly burned and killed by Kate as he's left screaming on the floor. After he goes still, they put out the flames. Olga is clean and given a flare gun. She's told that if another turns out to be inhuman, Whitley is to douse it in gasoline and she's to take the shot. Once Gennady is tested and said to be clean, a loving relief comes across Olga's face. Gennady quickly rushes to her, and she plants a kiss right on his lips. Kate notices.
Hey, none of that.
You can't be too sure. Gennady is given a taser.
What good is this gonna do?
Kate answers. It might not kill it, but the burn may stun it long enough for us to fry it. There's only one left. North. They all turn to him. Let's just get this over with. I know what I am. I know I'm not one of those things. Come on, show him. They test him, and he's clean. North is given a flare. He scowls. You gotta be fucking kidding. Gennady chimes in.
Privet, it's better than a taser.
Whitley airs his complaints.
At least you weren't given a tank of gas. What am I doing? Killing organisms or filling my car?
Kate understands the frustration. She focuses on North before turning and gesturing towards Whitley. I know it's not much, but it's all we have left. North asks, what about the flame grenades? Pavel chimes in. Those would be too dangerous in such close quarters. Whitley barks, but a flamethrower isn't? Pavel raises his voice, a rarity, screaming at Whitley, asking if he wants to burn the entire camp down. He explains that those bombs spread faster. An argument breaks out. Whitley gets up in Pavel's face. Kate tries her best to break things up. Guys, there's enough flares for everyone to share amongst themselves. Blake walks up to them. Not to mention, with our firepower, we're sure to keep you safe. Kate adds, the goal is to split up as little as possible, never get caught alone, and never give it an advantage. Cut to an outside shot of the base. It's night. The storm has well arrived. They look down at Koretsky's charred body, and then outside to see the snow falling hard. Whitley mentions that there's no way they're going back out there anytime soon, and Gennady admits, although he hates the idea of keeping these bodies in here, even if they are dead, there's always the morgue they can put them in. Pavel thinks that sounds like a good idea. North agrees. Yeah, it beats letting it sit there and stink up the place. Pavel asks if that's his main concern. North answers, no, but if we're already in a shit situation, I don't need a room smelling like literal shit to make it worse. Pavel, North, Olga, and Kate wear gloves and wrap Koretsky's body in a blanket to stay safe from any possible infection. They work together to carry the body to the morgue. Blake, Whitley, and Gennady follow. When they make it into the morgue, they open an empty drawer and put the body down on it. Koretsky's arm flops out. It's hanging limp. Kate notices something amongst the burnt skin. What's wrong? North asks, noticing her look down. What do you see? Kate's bottom lip trembles. Both her lips hang slightly open before they're put back together when she gulps. Koretsky's tattoo. Olga looks like she seems to have a hard time following, like she forgot a few details. Pavel understands what Kate's getting at. Pavel looks at her and leans in. Don't you see? The alien can't assimilate inorganic material. North enters the conversation. So what you're saying is, Koretsky was human? Kate nods as she tries to process what she had done. But, wait, wasn't this debunked? Olga asks. Kate looks at her and stutters. Only the fillings were disproven. Pavel helps Kate out. It can't replicate altercations to the skin. That's why I was almost certain Whitley was human, but for safety's sake, I tested him anyway. Kate steps back. She's sweating and has trouble catching her breath. Blake is behind her and puts his hand on her shoulder. Hey, you okay? She flinches. Don't fucking touch me. Her back hits the wall. She slowly slides down into a panicked ball. It framed Koretsky. I'm a murderer. I should have known. He screamed like a normal person. It's too smart. It could be any one of you. The thing found a way to get around that test by swapping the labels on the urine samples while nobody was looking. Kate has a mental breakdown. There's just too many questions. What about hair or fingernails? Those are dead cells. Do they grow long? How does it replicate it to begin with? Blake implores. Kate, relax. Kate continues. It's like you have to look at every single minute detail of a person. Whitley comes in.
Kate, just calm down.
He has his hand up to show he's not a threat. Kate doesn't stop. There's no hope. We should just kill ourselves now. She screams that they should all die. She shrieks before jumping up and running out of the room towards the kitchen and dining room where they conducted the test. She had taken off the flamethrower to help carry the body.
She's headed towards the flamethrower,
Blake shouts. They chase after her. Blake tackles her, and they struggle on the floor for a bit. Kate tries to take Blake's blowtorch. North rushes up behind them. Blake asks,
"Isn't there anything we can give her to put her out?"
North takes a pistol he's been carrying out of his holster and whacks Kate in the forehead with the end of it. Both Blake and North slowly turn to each other. North's eyes bulge as he answers Blake's question.
That.
When we return, we see that Kate has been locked in her room. Anything she could use to hurt herself or others is taken away. She just cries to herself in bed to keep looking, keep watching the skies. During this downtime, Pavel runs secondary tests, and they realize the infected urine was actually Olga's. With it now found out, Olga begins to convulse and shake in an inhuman way. It's like the world's most intense seizure, kinda like Palmer in the original. Some of her hair starts to fall out as her exposed scalp rips open, revealing a giant eye. Her lower jaw expands and her teeth sharpen. Her right cheek stretches and tears. You could see her back teeth, and her tongue has become purple and engorged. Her fingers stiffen together and become straight and insectoid. Tentacles sprout from her back and begin whipping all around. Her clothes rip, revealing a giant mouth with teeth on the left side of her torso. Part of her purple tongue flops out of her cheek and begins ballooning outwards like bubblegum. We see her legs and feet glue together and fuse. The line indicating two legs disappear when some sort of sap forms in between it. Her lower half resembles a slug. It's dripping with slime and mucus. Blake has the flamethrower now. As the Olga beast stands up, it swings one arm and scrapes the flamethrower. Blake hears the gas leaking from the flamethrower and quickly takes it off. Whitley is slapped around by her back tentacles, which are going wild. He falls to the floor. Blake orders North to torch it, since he now has the blowtorch, but he's on the side of her where the third eye is. Much like how some butterflies use their wings to alarm or confuse their enemy, the absolutely foreign eye hypnotizes North. Its pupil has various strange colors moving all around, some not even recognized on Earth. Blake keeps trying to snap North out of it. The thing slithers up to Pavel, leaving a slime trail behind it. It impales him on the mouth and down his throat. The force of it breaks his glasses off his face. The sides of his mouth instantly rip to fit the Olga beast's arm. Gennady staggers back at the monstrous sight of what he once thought was his wife. He runs out of the room. We could see and hear Pavel swallowing something. The hand must have opened up inside him and is now filling him with something. My guess is it's the same Twinkie mix goo it shot at the dogs in the kennel during the original movie. Yeah, that stuff is what Twinkies are made of. Good luck eating one of those again. Anyway, it seems to be part of this particular thing's assimilation process. Blake tries to take the blowtorch from North, but his grip is solid as Blake tugs while also begging North to comply. Although this tactic may be used on other planets to simply confuse other life forms, North appears to have permanent brain damage. Cut to Gennady stumbling down the hallway, rubbing his eyes, his teeth clenched. He passes by a black door. Back to the chaos. While on the floor, Whitley lifts his head and notices the trail of slime the Olga beast left behind. Whitley springs into action as he takes the container of gasoline that he had and pours it across the trail. Pavel seems to have become a thing, as his dead, seemingly uninterested eyes shoot towards Whitley and then back to eye contact with the Olga beast, a sign or warning of oncoming danger. Blake finally gets the blowtorch. While he was struggling with North, he saw what Whitley did and points the torch towards the trail. Whitley yells, "Now!" The Olga beast swings back and hits Whitley in the chest, which makes him fly out of the doorway into the hall, where he lands on his back. Blake lights the slime trail as the flame spreads upwards towards the Olga beast and engulfs it in flames. Blake sees Whitley on the floor and runs out of the room to help him up. The Olga beast slinks around in burning agony. Blake begins to help Whitley up, and they both see North just standing there. Their gaze lowers to see the leaking flamethrower as the flaming Olga beast moves towards it. Time seems to stop as they notice this. They both get up and run as fast as they can, but they don't make it far before the huge explosion. They hit the floor again and duck and cover. North perishes. He never even moved a muscle. Since there were stoves and microwaves and other electrical appliances that involve heat and fire, the explosion was very damaging. The kitchen is now a crackling inferno. Windows are broken, parts of the walls have broken off, letting the cold in, and the flames continue to spread. They move down the hall and pass Kate's room. There's a peephole on it, and when they pass, they hear Kate telling them to stop. Her voice is muffled. What's going on? Things aren't going well, Kate. Let's just put it at that. It might be best to keep yourself locked in there as long as possible. What? Kate asks. I'll come back for you, Blake responds. Kate becomes suddenly ominous. Watch out for Gennady. You saw him? Blake asks. There's something wrong with him. He's not human, but he's not quite one of them either. Implying that the thing cells are in him and spreading slowly throughout his body from the interactions he had with Olga, but he wasn't assimilated like Bennings, for example. It's like a slow cancer spreading throughout him that he could feel. Whitley moves forward without Blake. Blake worriedly calls to him. Whitley! Whitley, where are you going? Whitley turns and aggressively responds. We don't have time for this. Whitley starts moving. Get back here, Blake calls out, more desperately this time. Whitley, don't go alone. Whitley walks until he's out of sight. Shit. Kate speaks up through the door again. Just be careful, okay? There's a pause until Blake comedically answers. Sure. He continues to move down the hall before turning to the right and down another corridor. There are big windows which show the beautiful chaos of the storm outside. They have a light there outside the base that colors it all a dark orange, with the white and blue of Antarctica behind it. Blake has the blowtorch up and ready to fire at whatever poses a threat. He hears a roar echo through the hall before a huge bang and a ton of things falling. He runs inside the nearest room, a black door, which is an already trashed lab. The lab was trashed previously, when the thing was sabotaging their attempt at a blood test. Blake enters to find Gennady thinging out and making an even bigger mess of the place. One of his arms is a long tentacle with bulbous fingertips at the end. His other arm is normal, but under it is a sharp extension that looks like a fleshy shark fin. There are random eyes and mouths and other parts of the face all over his back. The eyes have tears dripping from them, and some mouths scream alien shrieks of agony, while others leak blood. There's fire all around. Whitley must have tried to fight it. There's a bunch of growing plants on a table, one of Pavel's unexplained experiments. We see Gennady Thing's normal hand spread tiny thing pods into the soil in hopes to preserve its continuation. It knows Blake is there. Blake looks on in horror. Gennady Thing turns around as his face finishes transforming. His eyeballs fall out, his left one hangs from the socket by a cord, and his lower jaw is gone. His tongue shrivels up into nothing. Spiked growths shoot out from his chest. His legs and feet look like moist talons. A horizontal cut spreads across Gennady Thing's stomach, and two paws come out as a decaying cat-like abomination emerges from its gut. It hisses and makes blood-curdling death moans like an injured feline. Gennady Thing whips the blowtorch out of Blake's hands with its long arm. It turns out the reason the fingertips are so round is because they're actually eyeballs, which blink at Blake. It tries to hit him again, but Blake rolls out of the way. He notices the blowtorch is across the room and he can't get it, so he searches his pockets for a flare. He doesn't have one. He looks up at the table next to him and notices Gennady's taser, with ripped pants next to it. Blake grabs it and shoots Gennady Thing, which makes it trip back into the plants, destroying that table and the vegetation. Gennady Thing is now pissed, but Blake took that moment while it was stunned to run across the room and grab the blowtorch. He sets the Gennady Thing ablaze as it runs out of the room, into the corridor, breaks through the glass windows, and lands in the snow. Blake looks out the broken window to see Gennady Thing writhing in the snow, trying to put itself out, but Blake ain't having it as he toasts it again as it lets out a final cry. Blake walks back into the burning lab. There's another door by the table that had the taser on it. Gennady's eye that plopped out is still on the floor. It grows tiny spider legs and begins crawling towards Blake. Blake sees it and kicks it into a nearby flame. The rampage has gone on to a point where the whole base is burning down. Blake walks through the camp alone. The only light leading his way is the constantly spreading fire. Much like Lars in the prequel, or Childs in the original, Kate disappears from the story. As Blake walks through, he sees barrels of kerosene knocked over and spilling all over the place. He also passes a shelf with a box of incendiary grenades that haven't gone off. We finally see where Kate had found it in the first place. He then passes by a bathroom. He notices a puddle of blood in the sink under the mirror. It seems Blake is the only one left. He's carrying 2 incendiary grenades. He walks into a giant room where half the walls have already collapsed. Outside is the bombed-out helicopter that Child's thing tried to steal. Now Whitley is there, taking as many usable pieces as he can. Blake approaches him. "What are you doing?" Whitley drops the pieces and steps up. "Blake, thank God you made it. Holy fuck, it's freezing. I thought maybe, just maybe, this pile of burnt crap could be fixed." Blake scowls. "Don't bullshit me. I know you're one of it." Whitley is taken aback. "What? That's nonsense. That monster in the lab almost killed me, and you're just gonna accuse me of being one of them? Don't be preposterous. Now come on, let's go get Kate and think of a plan to stay alive in this frozen over hell." Whitley begins to walk past Blake, but Blake steps in his way. "We're not going anywhere." Whitley stops cold. "What was that, Captain?" Blake snaps. "I said we're not going anywhere. You're not the Colonel. I don't take orders from you. You're one of them." Whitley shouts, "I am your superior!"
"Then why's your scar on the other cheek?"
Whitley steps back and feels his face, feels the scar on his right cheek.
It was the left cheek.
Now that it's been caught, Not Whitley takes the form of a bigger, slimier, more gruesome version of the James R. Ness monster from the original Thing from Another World. When standing against a towering Whitley thing, which is still a somewhat human form, an extremely panicked and frustrated Blake screams for answers. He asks what the fuck it is, and what does it want? Whitley thing responds with a bone-chilling and unintelligible growl, which crescendos to a deafening howl. We make Game Over Whitley a tolerable line, as Blake flicks off the pins of the 2 incendiary grenades. Blake sacrifices himself and blows up with Whitley. Smash cut to daytime. It's late March. We see the burnt out and snowed over wreckage of the Russian base. It's after the storm. We see a snowcat drive through the white blanket of snow until it makes it to the coast, where there's a huge ship waiting. The sky is gray, the sea is dark, and the air is foggy. We see it's Kate who is driving the snowcat, and as she boards the ship, we end on a shot of her on the bow, hand on chin, as she stares down. Everything goes quiet before the screen quickly cuts to black, and it's left ambiguous if she's a thing or not.